What's going on, guys? It's Paper here with a new Snap video. A new OTA just dropped and it's giving players what most of us have been calling for, buffs. We've got no nerfs in this OTA and 5 buffs, with a couple of them being extremely exciting. So let's get into it. So starting off with our first buff, we have Hawkeye. Now he's still a 1/1, but now his effect, instead of getting +2 when a card is played next turn on his location, he now gets +3. This does take Hawkeye out of Cerebro 3 lists. I don't know what it's going to do to affect his viability and play rate, but it is a nice little addition to his power. He gets much better in bounce decks now, which seems to be needing help right now, but in the end, he's still a 1-cost card, so it's hard to say, how often he's going to stay on the board with all the Killmongers around, especially considering he kind of needs to be on the board a turn ahead of time to get his buff. This is probably the least exciting change of this OTA, but it's nice to see a base card get a little love. Look out for Hawkeye to be featured in bounce decks, the eventual revival of Zoo if, Killmonger goes away somehow, and potentially Cerebro 4. I think this change is like an alright change, but it's not really going to move the needle too much on the people's perspective on how viable Hawkeye is as a card. So the next change is to a card that's a little bit more combo focused, and it's a card that's obviously more played than Hawkeye. Hulkbuster was previously a 3/4, it is now a 3/5. Hulkbuster is an interesting card because it's entirely rooted in comboing with other cards like Human Torch, Deadpool, or Multiple Man. This change to 5 power still keeps Multiple Man out of Shang-Chi range, which is welcome, and should offer a second viable option for Multiple Man and Phoenix Force decks. Now I know some Multiple Man decks were already using Hulkbuster, which is pretty nice, like as it is, to have him as like a 3/7, and then you destroy it and you make it like a 12 power with Phoenix Force. But I think this change is going to make it just a little bit more viable for those games where you don't draw Phoenix Force. In addition, Second Dinner did point out that Hulkbuster does work quite well with the next month's Season Pass card, so this is a change that we may not see the full effect of until next week's new season. Watch out for Hulkbuster to be included in more destroy lists as well as Phoenix Force decks where he was already sometimes seeing play. I think this change is pretty nice, and I'm excited to actually maybe experiment with Hulkbuster a little bit, where previously I wasn't really even interested in the card at all. So Vision has received a 1 power buff up to a 5/8. With the release of Phoenix Force, it's become clear that cards like Vision and Captain Marvel needed a little bit of help. Phoenix Force was essentially doing Vision's job, but just a little bit better. If you destroyed anything with more than 2 power, Phoenix Force was simply a cheaper, more effective Vision. Giving him the additional 1 power doesn't fully solve his issue, but it's a nice step to give some love to an underplayed card, which we've seen in also the previous 2 changes as well. All these cards have kind of been underplayed cards that are just getting a little bit of love to see if that's going to knock their play rate up, it looks like. It also puts them in line with other powerful cards like Legion, Jane, and MODOK, all very powerful 5/8 power or 5/8 cards that, really help out their decks. I think Vision was really only seen in Lockjaw lists, but there's a chance now that as a 5/8, he could sneak his way into some other lists. I do think Legion is just the best 5/8 that there is, but all these cards have kind of their own niches that they fulfill, and I think Vision at 5/8 could potentially sneak into some movement lists maybe. He could begin to show up more in more Lockjaw lists, because he does kind of fall out every once in a while. Sometimes he's in Lockjaw lists, and then other metas he's just like completely gone. But beyond that, it's hard to say like what decks are going to really adopt him, as 5 energy is a premium slot for most decks. Now these last 2 changes are certainly going to be the most impactful changes of this OTA. These 2 cards share one thing, or now share one thing, that are really going to set them apart from the other changes in this list, and these 2 cards may receive a massive hike in their play rates. Both of these cards are or are now 4 costs, which lets them pair perfectly with Zabu, who is already a dominant force in the meta. Starting off with the first buff, we have a new 4-cost powerhouse, and that is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was previously a 5/6, and now she is a 4/5. Now I do categorize this as a buff, as even though she did lose 1 power, but she can essentially become a 3/5 that can win you the game with a ton of flexibility now. The Zabu Darkhawk decks are pretty full when it comes to what forecasts are playing, but I think Captain Marvel could be a cool addition, and also it could potentially open up an entirely new archetype within Zabu lists, though it's not really clear how that could compete with the Darkhawk versions and how much power that they can output. I'm in love with this change, though I do fear that giving Zabu even more cards can lead to issues, as it already has with the addition of some other cards in the game, like Iron Lad. Captain Marvel was in fact quite hard to play at 5 cost, and she was mostly seen in Hello lists just because paying 5 for 6 power was really costly, and it just wasn't really worth it in a lot of cases. Now there is the Owl God list that Owl God has used to win a couple of tournaments recently that was using Captain Marvel, and I think that list was pretty nice and pretty flexible. I do think that list gets even better now, so look out for that. I might do a video on it in the future just because I think it gets even better now with this card. So making her a little less costly is going to help improve her flexibility, and it also allows your opponent a little bit more time to plan, so that might be seen as a bit of a nerf, but your opponent now has to more often plan for the addition of 5 power. So I think this change is great. I think Captain Marvel's play rate's going to skyrocket. I'm excited to experiment with it in different kinds of lists as a way to maybe combat the stagnation of like Darkhawk lists where they're at right now. The next change is also going to help that, but I do think that Captain Marvel being a 4 cost is going to pave the way for potentially a new type of, juke or just like some sort of movement archetype within a Zabu, and I'm really excited to play with this card. Finally, the biggest change of the patch. This is a change that will likely define this OTA much like Magic did in the last one. This is a surprising change for a surprising card. They are buffing Absorbing Man from a 4/3 to a 4/5. So I've been playing with Absorbing Man for about a week now in some Darkhawk lists, and even at 4/3 he's been working pretty well. The addition of 2 power is really going to set him up well in the meta, as 4/5 is quite an improvement, and it matches up with powers such as Rock Slide and Enchantress. It's just a solid stat line for 4 power, or for 4 cost, and with Zabu you're only paying 3 for it, so it's actually like a really, really nice stat line for what you're paying. I'm stoked for this change because I've loved Absorbing Man since he was released. I actually bought him the first day that he showed up in my shop. I thought he was going to be much, much better than he was, and he was for a little bit, but then he kind of fell off when more things kind of started like popping up that were just like a little bit stronger than him. Having the 3 power was a bit low, and if you didn't hit something cool with him, he was just like a 3 power for 4 cost, which really sucked. So he wasn't really as effective at 3 power as other things in his slot. Playing him recently though, some play patterns to look forward to are doubling up on Shang-Chi's and Enchantresses, which is huge. I think that's going to be the biggest use for him. You can also double up on Rock Slides, or even smaller things like doubling up on a Korg for a 5 power 1 rock play. Now these are obviously all plays that are included in the current Darkhawk lists. It's hard to say really what you're going to take out for Absorbing Man, but I think he definitely will see a lot of play in these Darkhawk lists. There's obviously some other things you can do. I was playing around with him last night in a Spectrum list, trying to see if I can, get like a Magic into a Spectrum Absorbing Man play, or like Wong Spectrum Absorbing Man. And that was kind of fun, but it didn't really have enough power, and it's kind of hard to set up. So there's obviously a ton of really, really good on reveal effects that Absorbing Man can copy, and I'm excited to see what people come up with this. I know personally I'm going to be experimenting a lot with it. There's a couple of other like decks that Absorbing Man has kind of showed up in recently, so look out for those decks. Those decks would be stuff like Hazmat or Silver Surfer. Those decks now have a bigger 5 power body to use with their combos, so I think those decks could see a little bit of a resurgence. However, stuff like Hazmat kind of falls short to the amount of Luke Cage that's currently in the meta. So I mean, regardless of what you combo Absorbing Man with, the 5 power is just a fantastic body. His usage should skyrocket, and I think it's quite obvious that his best home is going to be those Zabu lists with Darkhawk and the control cards. I've been playing him a lot, like I said, and like the double Shang-Chi is extremely strong. The double Rock Slide is a bit underrated. You're getting 2 Rock Slides for the same power on both of them, so it's not like it's a bad play at all. So I also was using him with like Mirage. Like last night I played Mirage, got a buffed Mysterio, and then I played Absorbing Man and got another buffed Mysterio, and I just won the game because I had way more power than my opponent who was playing their not buffed Mysterio. So I think this change is going to be great. It's going to define this OTA, and I'm super excited for this one. So that wraps up the August 3rd OTA. I think this is the first OTA that had pretty much all buffs with no nerfs. I could be wrong on that, but a lot of people have been asking just for straight buffs and to stop nerfing just everything that gets popular. I don't think that any of these are going to make the current meta shift in any meaningful way, considering the two best cards are going to be cards that can go into the best deck right now. So there's certainly some cards I think could have gotten nerfed. I do think that something in the Zabu Darkhawk Legion decks could have gotten touched. I particularly think that Iron Lad should have been nerfed to 5 power like a month ago, but he's still a 6 power. He's still premium stats, so I think he's gonna be the next card that gets nerfed, but I don't know why he hasn't been, honestly. I talk about it pretty much every day on stream. Like, he's just too strong. He's so strong at 6, but anyways, I'm really excited to give some of these buffed cards a try. I might actually give Hulkbuster a decent shot now. I previously thought it was a pretty bad card, but at 3-5, it's a little bit more enticing to try to make a combo deck around. So let me know what you think of this OTA in the comments below. What are you most excited to play with? And what do you want to see in a future OTA? I read every comment, so just let me know. Also, if you enjoyed this OTA video, please let me know in the comments because I typically don't do these. I usually just do deck breakdowns, so let me know if you like this content, anything I should improve, and if I should continue to do these for future patches. Finally, if you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel here. It would really mean a lot. We just passed 1,000 subscribers, which was my goal for the summer, so now we're going to be moving on to the next goal. I think 2,000 by the end of the year is pretty feasible, so that's what we're going to be working towards for the remainder of this year. So check out some of my other videos. I do deck breakdowns mostly for some of my favorite decks in Marvel Snap. You can find me live on twitch.tv/paper on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I've got the link in the description below. I usually stream late at night Pacific time, so catch me there if you want to hang out live. Anyways, it's time to go theory craft some Absorbing Man decks. So thanks for watching, and as always, good luck snapping.